The fall of the Roman Republic is one of the most studied transformations in world history, a sweeping drama of ambition, corruption, reform, and civil war that culminated in the rise of Julius Caesar, whose career embodied both the promise of renewal and the dangers of unchecked power. And to fully understand this collapse, one must begin with the condition of the Republic in the 2nd century BCE, when Rome's rapid expansion after the Punic Wars and conquests in Greece, Asia Minor, Spain, and North Africa transformed it from a city-state into a Mediterranean empire, straining institutions originally designed for a small community. The Senate, composed of aristocratic elites, was formally the guiding body, but governors in the provinces enriched themselves through corruption, while economic inequality deepened at home as latifundia, vast estates worked by slaves, displaced small farmers, forcing them into cities where they relied on subsidized grain, fueling social unrest and political volatility. And into this environment stepped reformers like the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius in 133 BCE and Gaius in 123 BCE, who attempted land redistribution to help the dispossessed, but were violently murdered by senatorial opponents, setting the precedent that political disagreement could be resolved through bloodshed rather than compromise, a dangerous erosion of republican norms. This was followed by the military reforms of Gaius Marius, who in 107 BCE opened the legions to the landless poor, thereby professionalizing the army but also creating soldiers personally loyal to their generals rather than to the state, a shift that would have immense consequences as ambitious commanders like Marius, Sulla, Pompey, and eventually Caesar could leverage military support to dominate politics. And indeed, Caesar himself marched his legions on Rome in 88 BCE, becoming dictator and unleashing proscriptions that killed thousands of opponents, demonstrating again that brute force, not law, increasingly determined Rome's future. By the mid-1st century BCE, the Republic was already cracking under these pressures, and it was in this unstable environment that Julius Caesar rose, a patrician by birth, but allied with the populares, the faction favoring reforms and appealing to the masses, who cultivated his reputation as a brilliant orator, shrewd politician, and ambitious leader. And in 60 BCE, he forged the first triumvirate with Pompey the Great, Rome's leading general who had defeated pirates and expanded Roman power in the east, and Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome, who had crushed the slave revolt of Spartacus. And though unofficial, this alliance allowed them to dominate Roman politics, securing benefits for each. Pompey gained land for his veterans, Crassus secured favorable financial legislation, and Caesar was elected consul in 59 BCE, soon maneuvering to gain a prestigious provincial command in Gaul, where he would achieve conquests that transformed both his fortune and the destiny of Rome. From 58 to 50 BCE, Caesar waged the Gallic Wars, defeating tribes, extending Rome's territory to the English Channel, crossing the Rhine into Germany, and even launching expeditions to Britain. And he carefully publicized these victories in his Commentari de Bello Gallico, which glorified his leadership and thrilled the Roman public. But this success alarmed the Senate and Pompey, especially after Crassus was killed in 53 BCE during the disastrous Battle of Carrhae against the Parthians, leaving the triumvirate unbalanced. And when Caesar's daughter Julia, Pompey's wife, died, the personal bond between the two men dissolved, making them rivals for supreme power. By 49 BCE, the Senate, under Pompey's influence, ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, a move that would expose him to prosecution for alleged abuses. But Caesar refused, instead famously crossing the Rubicon River with his legion and declaring alia iacta est, the die is cast, thus plunging Rome into civil war. Pompey and the senatorial faction, known as the Optimates, fled to Greece while Caesar swiftly marched into Italy, seized the treasury and consolidated power, then pursued Pompey across the Adriatic, culminating in the decisive Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE, where despite being outnumbered, Caesar's tactical brilliance secured victory, and Pompey fled to Egypt only to be treacherously murdered by the court of Ptolemy XIII, an act that Caesar condemned even as he became embroiled in Egyptian politics, allying with Cleopatra VII, who bore him a son, Caesarion, while he secured her throne in the Alexandrian War. Over the next few years, Caesar campaigned relentlessly, defeating remaining Republican forces in Asia Minor, where his swift victory at Zela in 47 BCE prompted his famous report, Veni, Vidi, Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered, then in Africa at Thapsus in 64 BCE, and finally in Spain at Munda in 45 BCE, after which he returned to Rome as the undisputed master of the Roman world, holding the unprecedented title of Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. And though he enacted a wide range of reforms that revealed both his ambition and his vision, redistributing land for veterans and the poor, expanding citizenship to many provincials, reforming the Senate by increasing its membership, restructuring debt, centralizing the administration of provinces, and most enduringly, reforming the Roman calendar to create the Julian calendar that remains the basis for modern timekeeping, these actions also concentrated power in his hands and alienated the aristocracy, who feared the end of republican liberty. For although Caesar rejected the title of king, his perpetual dictatorship and personal dominance over institutions resembled monarchy too closely for a society whose very identity had been forged in rejecting kingship centuries earlier. Thus, a conspiracy formed among senators, led by Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Unius Brutus, ironically one of Caesar's protégés, who convinced themselves they were saving the republic by eliminating a tyrant. And on the Ides of March, March 15, 44 BCE, they surrounded Caesar in the Theatre of Pompey during a Senate meeting and stabbed him 23 times, with Caesar reputedly recognizing Brutus and uttering the immortal phrase, et tu, Brute, before falling dead at the foot of Pompey's statue, a symbolic and bloody climax to the Republic's crisis. Yet the conspirators gravely miscalculated, for rather than restoring liberty, Caesar's assassination plunged Rome into further chaos, as the populace, who had benefited from his policies and admired his charisma, rioted, forcing the liberators to flee, while Caesar's allies, notably Antony, his trusted general and consul, and Octavian, his adopted heir and grandnephew, quickly seized the initiative, raising armies and pursuing vengeance. The ensuing conflict saw Antony and Octavian join with Lepidus to form the Second Triumvirate, instituting another wave of proscriptions and defeating Brutus and Cassius at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE, after which Rome was irrevocably divided between rival warlords until Octavian finally triumphed over Antony and Cleopatra at Actium in 31 BCE, paving the way for his transformation into Augustus, the first Roman emperor, in 27 BCE, thereby ending the Republic definitively. Yet it is crucial to see that the Republic's fall was not solely the result of Caesar's ambition, for the seeds of collapse lay in structural weaknesses, economic inequality, corruption, reliance on strongmen, and the inability of republican institutions to adapt to the governance of a vast empire. And Caesar's career merely accelerated the inevitable, though his legacy remained profound, as his writings influenced Latin literature, his calendar shaped global timekeeping, and his model of centralized leadership inspired monarchs and rulers for centuries. While his story of rise and fall, of reforms and betrayal, of glory and assassination became a timeless lesson about the fragility of political systems when personal ambition collides with institutional decay, reminding us that the Roman Republic did not fall in a single moment, but unraveled through decades of tension before collapsing in the shadow of one extraordinary man whose name, Caesar, would forever become synonymous with power, empire, and the end of republican freedom.